All right. On Instagram at DGTheDarkness, Derrick Garza. No relation. What's up, my brother? How are you?
What's up, my brother? And the fans or the people should know that we share the same name, actually.
Is your name Robert?
Yeah, my first name's Robert.
Dude, I've known you for almost a decade. I had no idea.
So, interestingly enough, my brother, my half brother, is also Robert Garza, and he's Robert Garza Jr. Made my mom mad.
Dude, that's
the,
so
the
funny.
younger version is like the actual junior, and I myself am Robert Derrick
That's
Garza.
hilarious. I had no idea, man. So similar to, so I had BMAC, Brandon McCaffron, on the first episode, and I met him also around the first or second on an invitational. And I had this flashback, man. I had this flashback literally as I was talking to him about those events because I distinctly remember being in the front row for most of them. When I was, we were doing the Jiu-Jitsu podcast, and Fody, our other co-host, was doing some of the commentary with the people there, and we were helping set up or whatever. I remember I also met Boogie that same day, and you and
I
Boogie.
competed against him.
I know. I had the flashback of like it was a great. It was it was a tournament style, and then he catches you. I hate to put salt on the wound, but he catches you in this instant heel hook, man. I was like, God damn, that's so crazy. And that's when I started learning more about these 10th planet freaks, as they call themselves. But man, you're also a black belt in jiu-jitsu, second or third degree black belt, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you're the artsy fartsy type like myself from time to time. So you cover all the bases of the type of people that I love talking to. So I wanted to get Derrick back on because I last time I talked to you, I interviewed you, I believe, at one of your old jiu-jitsu locations, and we were sitting in it was like a lobby area, but it was kind of like a warehousey style, and there was no AC. There was no AC. We had like a cooler with some like sparkling waters at the time, and we just had a great conversation. That was a long time ago, so I'm looking forward to catching up.
Yeah, man. The gym at the time was Darkland. So you've known me actually through two gyms that I worked at, or
Yeah.
one I worked at and one I owned, and the rise and fall of the Darkland Empire. If you want to go deep into
Sure.
that.
Yeah, hell yeah, I do, man. Because all businesses have ups and downs. And in the world of jiu-jitsu and martial arts, it's just as, if not more prevalent, because gyms in general are so hard to run. Whether it's like a strength training gym, the CrossFit gyms, and then the martial arts gyms. I've known so many people who have these dreams, and you might be the same type, where you put everything into it and it's going really well, and then it's something about the ebbs and flows of the gym industry where if you're just not on top of it, it falls so quickly. And CrossFit gyms, I think right now are probably a prime example of that.
Yeah, man. I think a lot of it has to do with just consumer culture. When anything comes out and it's brand new and it's novel, I think humans jump on that thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Until the next thing comes to be. You know what I mean? And a lot of times people don't really take into consideration the weight of just like consuming one thing after another. It leaves things in their wake. You know what I mean? So I think with where Austin was, like I was kind of, plus the pandemic, I was kind of a victim of that. I don't want to say a victim. I don't feel like a victim, but just like that consumer culture, now in my 40s. And if you were a competitor, would you go with someone who's in their 40s? Would you go with someone who's making noise in their, early 20s? Like, so that I feel was something that, something I had to come up against or whatever. And that was tough, man. Like the onset of those things, like, the first gym closed and that was because the owner got sick. And then the second one was kind of like coincided with like B team and new waves coming in and pandemic happening. And so they came in right after the pandemic. So it was just like a lot of things that kind of came into play with end of my age. And I was just like, yeah, man, it might be time for a new chapter. You know what I mean? I just don't want to keep fighting uphill. And that's what I felt like I was doing.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit because I had no idea you're in your 40s, by the way. You look fantastic for being in your 40s. 45, dude, what are you doing?
Jiu-jitsu.
Don't tell me. I knew you were going to say that immediately. I told BMAC I just started training, so I'm getting back into the flow of things.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I think a lot of people that are like, long-term jiu-jitsu people, like they're kind of fucking nerds, man. And like, can I curse on this?
Oh, absolutely. The more the better.
Okay. But my point is they're not the ones with giant social lives. Like their social life is kind of like in the gym. So like that being said, I learned pretty early on that drinking late affects my training the next day. And so I kind of just like backed up, I still have beers here and there, but like not like I used to do. I used to get fucking hammered in my 20s and then like,
Oh
all right,
yeah.
cool. I'm going to go train in the morning and just be like, cool. And my instructor at the time would be like, were you drinking liquor last night? I could smell it. And I'm just like, yeah. And now, I don't drink super heavily. I still train a couple of times a week. And, my life is not out doing a bunch of social shit. It's like with all the other jiu-jitsu nerds who like are awkward and are at
Yeah,
home
that's
doing
so
jiu-jitsu stuff.
funny. As you said that, as you started the sentence about, like your social life, when I hear that phrase nowadays, I'm like, I don't even give a fuck about a social life anymore. You know what I mean? Like when you have family and kids and you're trying to run your own small business or a side hustle and you're also like creative, there really isn't a lot of time to go out and do those things. Like your creative endeavors, your small business endeavors, your family, your wife, your kids, that takes up all of your time. And it's
also
fun and it's
really
great.
hard. It's also really hard, I think, as adults to make new friends.
Absolutely.
Like
That's why I do
just
this
start
podcast, by the way.
conversation.
This right here is my way of making new friends in life.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Well, at least you're doing something, man.
Yeah.
I'm just complaining here at home, like, fuck, I don't know any new people, man. You know what I mean? Coming out of that like social setting of like being in a jiu-jitsu gym all the time, like you will come across interesting people and just new people. And now I just don't have that. So you kind of rely on like, okay, well now I do that through my job, but then it's like it's your job. Kind of should keep maybe like your professional and your personal life a bit separate if you're trying to be, have a little bit more boundaries and stuff. So I think just on a whole level, in society, I think it's just kind of hard to make friends like in a organic way.
Yeah, it is real. It's even harder because it's so fast paced, especially, we're Americans here, right? We're talking about people in America. We're in Texas. I just moved from Houston to the Austin-ish area. You've been in Austin for what, your whole life or a long time, right?
Years. I'm from South Texas,
Oh, okay. So you're from the Valley?
Corpus Christi, my
Of
friend.
course you are. Puros Garzas. Puros Garzas in the RGV, man. You go to Alamo, you go to Donna, there's like Garza signs, the fruit guy, the farmer. It's Puros Garzas. That's hilarious. I didn't know that.
Corpus is wild though, man. Like, yeah, you won't find me moving back there anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I have a good buddy, a comedian, Javi Luna, who's from Corpus, and I know DJL Dusty and a couple of the people from down there. But yeah, it's a different world. It's kind of like the beach life, but also kind of just like, is it touristy? I don't even know anymore.
Honestly, man, it's one of those things. It's very hard to explain other than like there's not a lot of growth and a lot of growth opportunities.
Yeah,
So people that stay there are a lot. I'm not going to just. I'm painting with a broad stroke, obviously.
yeah, of course. I love generalizing.
It's an aggressive place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the artists that live there, a lot of them move out, and when they start new endeavors, man, it's kind of supported until there's beef with somebody, and it's just one of those like it's a mid-sized city, but it's got a small town mentality, and people want it to grow, but also like are afraid of the change of it. It affects them too much. So it's just a weird place, man. So like growing up there, always kind of felt like the oddball, especially as a dude who is artistic, not autistic, and
Sometimes a little bit of both.
there's an overlap, but just kind of more in touch with like not just the like hard side of being a man or a human. You know what I mean? Like I'm really trying to tap into just different things, and that's not really widely practiced, I think, or even accepted. It's like it's fucking weird. You know what I mean? Like you do something that's off the beaten path, and it's what are you doing? What are you doing, man?
Totally.
It's not the way you do things.
Totally. And to kind of go back to what you were saying about it's hard to make new friends, the reason I brought that up, the big cities, is because it's a lot of the times it's what can you do for me, right? Or what is it that, we can expect from each other? Like there's expectations about why we're even conversing. Not you and I, but I mean people in general. You go out there and try to make new friends either at work or at the gym or wherever. It's a lot of people, not everybody, but again, just painting with a broad brush, have an expectation of like, okay, well, what is this going to lead to? And not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but when that's your only expectation from going out and meeting new people, then you're kind of not, you're doing yourself a disservice. Like people can usually tell when you're being disingenuous.
But it's also hard too. Like I get that, and it's like everybody's kind of leading with that. So even if you don't have the expectation that it should lead somewhere, just conversations in which we're just doing it for the sake of having conversations, even that is kind of like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that's I guess the accepted general rule for society is that like it's always transactional, and I don't, I can't say that I'm not a part of that because I live in society, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it bums me out in a way, you know what I mean? Because I think there's a lot of humans out there that are really interesting, have things to teach and things for me to learn from, but you don't know if that's the type of person you're talking to, or if it's the kind of person that's like, oh man, I really don't want this person in my life. Like, who knows? You
Yeah.
don't always get a chance to figure that out. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, man, friends in your adulthood is really interesting.
Yeah. So you're 45. You're married. You have kids, right?
I'm not married.
You're not married?
I have a long term partner.
Oh, okay. And do you have any kids?
I have I have a son.
Okay.
He's 23.
Oh, dang, son.
I
Oh,
know.
dang, son. Dang, son. You got an old son. That's crazy.
I know. But yeah, man, it's always funny because when I raised him as a single father, and people still kind of look at him because he's been around the jiu-jitsu gyms and community for a long time because of me, and people are always like, "He's that old." I'm like, "Bro, he was born in '99, man. I just been doing this, and he's been around for a really long time, like." Kind of both, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, man, people are always surprised that he's 23.
That's awesome, dude. Well, I don't want to speed past the jiu-jitsu part of your life because I know you're doing other things now, but to go back to that, when I first met you, I guess you must have been in your almost mid to late 30s, and you were competing a lot. Are you still competing a lot?
No. Kind of, I guess, as I've gotten older, my outlook on jiu-jitsu has changed a bit. Just priorities have changed, you know what I mean? I still love jiu-jitsu. Love jiu-jitsu, man. I don't think as long as I can keep training, I probably will. But I'm not super in love with where the culture is going, and I think it is reflective of like just the look at me culture. You know what I mean? I think Conor McGregor really like captivated everybody, and then people started taking that, and then you had like the Gary Tonins and people in jiu-jitsu started being like, oh, I can beat this. And so they just became more like personalities. And so, not to shit on anybody, I'm not, it's just not my bag. You know what I mean? I'm like, all right, man, I just more like want to go into a place and just be able to train without like, I feel like that type of stuff always kind of attracts like kind of some chaos, and it's cool. I guess if you're in your 20s, it's exciting, but I'm like, man, I've already done the bullshit of like crazy 20 years, you know what I mean? And in my 30s, I was like, I want to be a better human. I want to be a more empathetic human. And I find that this is kind of the opposite direction of where I'd like to go with my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's funny because I didn't watch the fight. I mean, I still watch like every UFC. I'm a huge martial arts fan, right? We just started training again, my wife and I, that we moved down here to the South Austin-ish area. And I'm watching the highlights of like bare knuckle, and I'll catch most of the Bellators. And I saw Conor was at the recent bare knuckle fight, right? And he's making a ruckus there. And there's something about that guy, man, that I can't help but root for this guy. I know he's a degenerate at times, and he is the definition of what we say may have ruined certain aspects of martial arts and maybe even entertainment in general when it comes to the personality building, but I like the guy.
Here's the thing, though. I never have to interact with Conor, like ever. Yeah. You know what I mean? And he's like on a different level, man, because that dude is like a professional entertainer. You know what I mean? But then you have these like low-level blue belts and white belts who are like, they got 30,000 followers as a white belt, and it's because they're just doing whatever they're doing. You know what I mean? And that's not to like hate on anybody. That's more to just be like, these people, they're not Conor. You know what I mean? Like, I have to interact with these people if they're at the gym and stuff. And so I'm just like,
that's a really good point. That's a very good point.
And so maybe you do have to go through the levels if you're ever going to achieve that level. But I mean, that dude's the perfect storm. You know what I mean? Like, for where he was and he had a giant organization behind him, and he had the look. He was doing things like he was doing all the things and being pushed at the same time. And like most of the people that are just making noise are just making noise.
That's
You know
like
what I
that's like most of social media,
mean?
just
Exactly.
making noise.
And again, like in some ways, I'm a part of it because I am on social media. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I am definitely not trying to be like a hypocrite or like holier than thou, nothing like that. More in the realm of just jujitsu for myself. I'm just like I'd like to train. I'd like to be mentally, psychologically in a quieter place. It just with less distractions. You know what I mean?
I
So
do, I
that's
do, and that's kind of why the podcast is such a great outlet. And I think for a time you were also trying to do your own podcast and try to do.
yeah.
And I
It
suggest
was.
everybody do it, man. I feel like everybody that has like the not just ability but desire to have like a longer form conversation, do it as an escape. If anything, like if you have a job and you have a side hustle or a business, something that can feed your life, and you can still do this on the side, the therapeutic benefits of having just a good old conversation with somebody, whether you know them or you're just acquaintances, is
Yeah.
for me. It's like I've never been to therapy. I've never have a therapist or anything, but it's what I feel like that would be.
That's interesting. I've been to therapy. I've actually been in therapy for 5 years.
Okay, hey man,
so,
yeah, a lot of people I know, my
so
wife included.
I will say, yeah, man, I think given the platform to be open to what people have to say,
Yeah,
as long as you're not just interrupting or being like, I bring people on to be,
Mr. Know It All.
contrarian or, or knowing it all, or just like, I'm just starting arguments. Like I'm not actually open. I think that's totally like great. You know what I mean? To be able to do that. Um, I really liked doing the podcast that I was doing. But I kind of shot myself in the foot early because I was like, this is before I knew how to like video edit and stuff like that. I was doing like video and audio, and I was kind of releasing them at the same time. And I had a shitty computer, which would just be like, all right, here's the export time, 72 hours. And it would
Oh,
crash, and I'd be like, fuck. And so just the logistics of trying to handle that. And then I thought, well, maybe if I just go to like an audio, and for some reason it just didn't appeal to me as much. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe that's my ego that was like, no, you started doing this, you got to finish doing this. And I'm like,
mm-hmm.
so I never switched it over. So I think
Oh,
all in all, I had two iterations of the same podcast. I think I released like probably like 12 episodes or something like
mm.
that. Like audio, and then I did a video, and then like 6 episodes. So it was cool. I mean, I liked it. I got all this equipment that's just sitting there. So
Dude,
yeah,
dust it off, man. Dust that shit
I
off.
dusted it out, man.
Dust it
Microphone
off.
right now.
Find some, find the people, find the or whatever the thing is, and just do it, man. I know people listening. So many people that I talk to want to do this. I've talked to professionals in corporate America, and they're like, I want to be able to incorporate a podcast even into my job, so that I can just do the thing, even though I'm at work and whatever. I nerd about it all the time. I subscribe to a couple of newsletters where I just get all the news about where it's going, the trajectory, like the industry itself, the monetization of it
Man,
all.
you're producing like quite a bit of podcast.
Oh my God, have I? Yeah. Yeah,
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 I
yeah.
mean, you weren't just like dreaming it; you were doing it. You
Yeah,
were like, living it.
for over 10 years now. I think I'm going on like
Yeah,
11 or 12 years, from my own stuff to then the Jiu-Jitsu podcast, which took us to all the cool on it things, met people like you, did some really cool privates, and then had really cool people like, when you said drinking earlier, it reminded me of like drinking and then training. Dean Lister. We did a seminar with Dean Lister. I've never met somebody who can drink that heavily and perform that proficiently like Dean Lister.
So I have a story about Dean Lister.
Please
A
tell me.
couple of them actually. So he when I was at Eastside Austin Elite, his black belt was the owner. So he was an older guy, and this dude Ben would always talk about Dean. Dean's my boy. Dean's my boy. And I'm like, fuck, prove that shit. So we book a free seminar, and at the time, if people don't know about Eastside Austin Elite, our mat space was like 3,400 square feet. I mean, it was a 12,000 square foot facility, different rooms. And so we book Dean Lister, like, cool, it's on a Friday, it's free. Let's cap it at 100 people. So, like, people are showing up. And this is the early days, man. This is before, like, East Side Austin Lee. I was really, like, truly, not just like blow my own horn here, but like, I've always been more lenient to the like no-gi stuff. So in Austin, we were like the no-gi place, and then 10 Planet came after us, and they had way more like social presence. But anyhow, we booked this thing, and Dean Lister got there earlier in the day, and then just drank, and then this seminar was booked at like 6 p.m. And I'm this new guy in town who's been there for about a little less than a year. All these different schools and all these different people are there and waiting on him. And 10 minutes pass, and 20 minutes pass, 30 minutes pass. And so at some point, I had to just be like, all right, I'm going to warm you guys up, man. So I'm like, take control of this crowd in which there are like, 100 people there, man. And then people that they brought and watching, and I'm like leading this. I don't know any of these people, and I'm just like, we're doing some wrestling drill. I started basically giving a class, and then this motherfucker walks in, and everybody applauds him. Like, bitch, motherfucker, you threw me under the bus in a way. And so it was all good. It was all good. We like went out after that. We had some drinks. It was cool. He gave Toby Amata his black belt that day, so like,
Oh, cool.
it's cool. I like Dean, but he marches Toby to his own drum.
100%. That is so funny because that's very similar to. I believe we did it. This was a long time ago too, but we did it at Victor Pose's Dark Side out in Houston.
Yeah.
And I think that Vic's also a Dean Lister black belt. Yeah, and I think he might have actually given Victor his black belt at that seminar as well. And if anyone's ever been to the Dark Side, which maybe many of you haven't, it's literally just like a dark dungeon of a gym, and then like his office is an even darker dungeon where he's got cool art, and like it's the only AC'd room in that whole place. It's just a dungeon of heat, and then you get into his office and he's got like a air conditioner in there. But we had couches and shit. And anyway, yeah, Dean was just, he showed up lit, performed well, did the seminar slightly late, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. You're probably right. And then did a good podcast, and I was just left, and I was like, I'll never meet somebody like this guy. Like, he is an interesting guy.
Yeah, he's from the old school, man. Like, he was around, I think, the first Abu Dhabi, and he's just a pioneer, man. And so, like, I think if you're kind of an outlier and you're that dude who's, just kind of he has the je ne sais quoi.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who's going to tell that guy what to do? And
yeah, exactly. Considering,
is he going to listen? No,
yeah,
he's not. Be Dean Lister. He's fucking kind of larger than life,
Literally, his neck is like the size of my computer screen.
Oh, one more story. So we go out and we're on 6th Street, and it's me, Toby Amata, Dean Lister, and a bunch of other like people that used to train at Eastside. And so at some point during the night, he's like, "Do you know how to get out of a full Nelson?" And I'm like, I mean, I have in my head, I'm like, I have an idea. I'm like, are you asking me? And so it just puts me on, and I'm like, oh my God, you're fucking gigantic, dude. I'm like, at this point, like 160 pounds. So I'm just, I'm on literally, he does it and I can't get out. And then I'm on the floor, and him and Toby are talking about how to get out of it or whatever. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Why wouldn't you even tell me you're going to do that to me? Just like, here, come here. And does it. I'm just like, dude, fucking, you're gigantic. You should not be doing that to small people or whatever. So yeah, man, he was cool. I like Dean, but yeah, a couple of crazy stories.
Cool flashback stories, right? There's so many of those if you've been in the jiu-jitsu community for any amount of time. So speaking of jiu-jitsu, like were you running Eastside Austin Elite, or were you just working there? Or?
So I was running the grappling program. It was built in a way that it was supposed to be like a gym in California that would bring fighters in. We would house them. We were going to build bunks upstairs, and it was somebody, Ben, who was coming from California and had this idea of what Austin was going to be. So it was pretty visionary. It didn't turn out to be that, because Austin is not like Houston, in which I think Houston is, like, in my opinion, the MMA hub of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Austin turned out to be more like the Nogi hub of Texas. And so it just didn't attract that following. And I mean, so we had a CrossFit guy there, Justin Lake, and his brother-in-law was Tim Kennedy, is Tim Kennedy.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah. So Tim was bringing people in from Jackson Wink. So, it was pretty common to like go and then see like Cowboy Cerrone and Leonard Garcia, Yves Edwards, who would come in sometimes. And, of course, Toby Amada's there. And so, like, it would just bring a certain, I don't know, man, legitimacy to the gym. But it just never turned out to be like, other schools were trying to like set up their guys to be MMA fighters. They were more like, okay, fight to win has started to be a thing. So professional grappling kind of started to take off more and people started leaning. It was just easier than getting punched in the face, So I was hired to be just the grappling instructor there. I had got my black belt in 2012. And, I was like, okay, well, the best way for me to inspire my students to participate is to really put myself out there. You know what I mean? So at this point, I had just made like the Dark Clan label. I was doing rash guards, and I was like, wow, who do I have to be model for this stuff? You know what I mean? And I'm like, kill two birds with one stone, man. I like go compete. I wear my shit. I don't know if I'm going to win, if I'm going to lose, but I will go out there and I will like guns blaze. I will go out and blaze glory. You know what I mean? So like, never went out in any competition. I just don't really have the mindset where I'm like gonna fucking win this. Like I'm the best. I really was just like, I don't know, man. He knows jujitsu. I know jujitsu. We're gonna see what happens. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I just never was like I'm gonna be a huge competitor. It was more like I don't want to make myself look like a fool. So let's just go out there and do stuff,
Interesting, because you are super creative and you're a really good designer, if I'm not mistaken. Like you designed all your stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was always cool designs, cool colors, and you kind of like ahead of the time, I guess, because you would wear your own stuff. You'd go out there and compete, and you wouldn't. It's not like I don't know, if flashy is the right word, but you were really good at the craft. So you looked really good in the gear doing the thing, and it just kind of all came together. I'm like, that guy's fucking cool. And then we have the same last name. I'm like, even cooler, right?
Yeah.
But so this will kind of right. Puros garças. So this kind of sets up the entire like what we've been talking about and what we'll get into. And is what were you doing prior to that altogether? Because you've done a lot of entrepreneurial type things from the time that I've known you.
Man, I was just doing odd jobs, you know what I mean? Like, I had it in my head pretty early that I wanted to own a school or be an instructor. And so, like, started training all in all, like, in my teenage years. And then I joined Paragon Academy in 2002. So then I would just like right off the jump, man. I think my instructor at the time saw potential and he saw a lot of like commitment on my part. So it was like, I want you to help teach class. And at this point, black belt's pretty rare. And so he's a blue belt, I'm a white belt, and I'm helping teach class because, I've already been grappling with like my brothers, doing some wrestling stuff. And so like I just was kind of ahead of the game a little bit. And so he's a blue belt, I'm a white belt. He's a purple belt. I'm a blue belt. He's a brown belt. I'm a purple belt. So I'm right behind my instructor. We're both under French. And so during this time, man, I'm essentially like single father, whatever jobs I can get in Corpus because it's just kind of like whatever it is. So I was doing that. I had let me back up a little bit more. I was going to school for graphic design when I found out that I was going to be a father. I moved back to Corpus to be with the girl that I was with at the time, and then kind of just took jobs there. Like I didn't feel like that career, like I had many paths there, so I was just doing whatever I could. I stayed there till 2008, which my cousin, also named Robert Garza, asked me. He opened up an academy, and he was going to be under Leo Xavier, and they had a falling out. I was a brown belt. He's like, "You want to come move to Houston and teach at Elements BJJ?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it, man." So I moved, and that was pretty much like my first foray into being a full-time instructor. I was doing it kind of part-time, but like juggling. And then 2008, I just pretty much was like, boom. And then that happened for a minute. I was the first instructor, the first jiu-jitsu instructor at Paradigm Academy, or Paradigm Wrestling Academy with Reed Shelger. And then they got their black belt with GFT, all that good stuff. So I just kind of was there. Then I moved to Austin, Paragon, Eastside, Darkland. So
Oh,
that was
okay.
my path there.
And throughout that whole time, did you think like I'm going to be doing this kind of thing, or am I going to be in this industry for like the rest of my life? Is that what you wanted to do?
It's funny, man, because like I think when you're young, you don't think you're ever going to get old.
Right.
And so like I think I didn't really plan. I was just like, be funny, man, because I think like in some subtle ways, people would come in and they would be like in their 50s as a white belt. Now they'd just be like, oh man, like I'm tired. And in my head, I'm like, come on, man, it's just like you can kind of suck it up. It's not that big of a deal. But this is, my 20s talking, where I'm like, come on, bro, like we barely did anything. You know what I mean? And as I've gotten older, I've been like, man, I did.
Yo, such an asshole thinking to yourself.
Yeah, man. And so I just was a bit short sighted. You know what I mean? I was like, um, never planning for like 401k or retirement with jiu-jitsu. I'm like, why do I need to? This is what I'm doing. I do jiu-jitsu. I'm healthy. You keep doing it. You plan, if you're in my naivety, just planning for the best and being like, there's no other option because positive thinking. You know what I mean?
Right.
Get older and then you're like, what the fuck, man?
I'm almost 50. What did I do?
Yeah, man. So it's, I still have the love for it. I still have like the desire to want to train, but it's just like a little bit more balanced these days, I think, where I wouldn't ever say like, oh, I'm being super fanatical. Like off the jump, I'd be like, yeah, man, it's probably time to rest, or it's just not going to be like jujitsu is the only thing in my life. And I think that's what it was for like, 2 decades, man.
Yeah, I was going to say 20 years at least.
20 plus years, man. Like, yeah, I've been a black belt since 2012. That's 11, almost 12 years. And so that's just the black belt part, And so like I've been grappling, grew up with wrestling in my family. Like it's just been a thing. And so I love it. It's going to stay there, but also like I don't want to kill myself over it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And where I thought it was just like that was the only thing, man. And that's the only thing it could ever be. And it's almost like a pigeonhole. Weird because now I'm like, well, I want to do other things, and I'm like, well, fuck, it's hard to find an audience sometimes. Like all my audience kind of funneled through jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, okay, that's fine, but like, what happens when you need to like try out fresh ideas and like the people really only know you for the one thing,
Right.
Like, what does that do for you creatively? Like, is that a hit on your ego? Can you like go further than that, or what do you do, or just kind of quit and be like, well, fuck, nobody's listening anymore?
Yeah, that is a scary thought, and it's crazy to think like when you said, "Yeah, we don't think we're going to get older." You're absolutely right, and also let me mark this by your standards of 12 years in the game or 12 years of being a black belt, which that's awesome. I didn't know that. I'm technically a black belt at podcasting because I also started in 2012. So we've been doing. Hey, what's up?
Yeah, man, you should be giving out black belts, bro.
Bro, I should. I should start a course, and I should charge you $997 to take my podcasting course.
Yeah, man.
No, but one, you should definitely start the podcast back up. You should do something creative like that because you're just fun to talk to. I've talked to you outside of outside of microphones and cameras. We've just chilled or whatever, and it's always a good chat. And we're like half an hour into this, and I know we can get deeper into a lot of the elements that got you from Corpus to the 20 years of jiu-jitsu and martial arts. But now you're doing other things, and now you're talking about something else that's interesting, right? Audiences and social media, and you wanted to try out new things and get a new chapter in your life under your belt. So let's dive into that. Like, what started your next chapter of becoming a barber?
So, like I said, pandemic happened, and truly, man, when I heard on the news like this thing is happening, it's moving from its original country, and it's like migrating. I was like,
it came from China. It came from China.
Well, interestingly enough, I was like, man, there's been bird flu. There's been like swine flu. It's going to be fine, because at the time that this happened, I had a group that was renting space from me, and they were like, we're going to shut down. And I'm like, they're like, we can't come in this month. And I was like, it's going to pass. It's fine. And then it became a fucking worldwide phenomenon. And I was like, fuck. Again, not thinking past myself, you know what I mean? And so that happened, all the fucking financial shit. I mean, I was bleeding out, man, from like just people that were like, cool, the first month, we'll support you. We want to we love this gym. We're going to keep it going. And then Second month is like, people got laid off and there's no more jobs. So people started dropping off, man. And I was already like struggling to just keep it afloat because like, it was just a big place, man. Like when Eastside closed, like I said, it was a 12,000 square foot place. I was trying to keep the community together. And so I was like, well, it's got to be something similar. So I got a space that was about half the size, and like my rent was like $8,000 a month, right? And so paying that much money from jujitsu, like it's kind of hard to do, man. Like, when you own something or when you're in charge of something like that, man, you kind of eat last. And so on top of trying to pay that, like I wasn't always paying myself. I was just stressed, man. Like, it just wasn't good times, And so when we came back, I kind of felt like the hourglass had been turned over, and it was like it's just a matter of time, no matter what. Like I was fighting for it, but again, it was just like every month I was having to like really move stuff around to make it happen, and I just was getting tired, man. And so finally I kind of knew it was coming. Like it was like, how long do you hang on? And I'm like, cool, okay, I'm going to announce this. So I announced it, and the day after I announced it, I went to a barber school, and mostly because I had been cutting my friends' hairs, like in when I was a teenager. I just like had been doing it. I had always had clippers. I'd do my own hair, just like I don't know, man. It seems like a job in which I don't have to go work at a refinery or like learn some backbreaking thing in my 40s. And I was like, but dude, barbering is fucking hard too, like to do this well, it's a craft, you know what I mean? So like, I don't want to say I bit off more than I can chew. It's not how I see it, but more that I was just like, I jumped into something that was like, it takes a certain level of like creativity, it's science, but it's also art. So it wasn't like an easy craft at all. But I did that, went through school, was just super committed. I was like, I don't want to fuck around. Like, I'm in my 40s, just want to do the thing. And so, yeah, a year later, I was on a waiting list for 6 months, went through school for 6 months, and on the other side of it, I'm a barber now. And so that's kind of how that went, man. And so the beautiful thing about it is, man, is like I still can be creative. I can essentially, like, when you get to a certain level, you can make your own hours. Like, I still get to do jujitsu. So it was just something that was not going to just bog me down. Where I'm going to be like, oh, I'm in a warehouse for 50 hours a week and I'm fucking tired. And, just like, I feel like those are the things that really make people get old quickly.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was kind of how that came to be.
So how long have you been doing it now? Since you got your license?
Since I got my license in November.
Coming up on a year. So, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Congratulations, man. That's so how far or how long after you had to shut her down at your gym did you go to start going to school and then work on that license process?
I shut my gym down in October of 2021. Yeah. 2021. And I started school in May of 2022. And pretty much 2022 was the year of just like try to make it happen.
Yeah.
Try to make it happen. You know what I mean? Like, you have to do 1,000 hours of like practical stuff, and then you have to like take tests and stuff. And I was just of the mentality that, dude, I don't want this to go on for like a year and a half. You know what I mean? Just like put everything aside, just get through this, get to the career that you're going to do now. Otherwise, those people in there that had been there for a year plus, you know what I mean? The program's 6 months minimum, and they were a year plus and just like doing other things. And I don't blame them. I mean, fuck, you do what you got to do. But I was like, just kind of I just had an opportunity to like get through it quickly. Now I can like start doing stuff to like earn money, earn a living.
Yeah. And that time before that, man, that's got to be tough because it feels like death by a what is it? Death by 100 or death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
right? When you're having to shut her down and you wanna just get over with it. You want to be like, hey, it's closing, I'm done, and I want to move on with my life. But there's like a process you have to go through so that you end on good terms with everybody, that everybody still understands where you're coming from, why you did it, and that if you do something later, they want to support you again instead of just kind of leaving him in the dark. So that's got to be tough as well.
I think there was a lot of like, I'm pretty hard on myself, like just in general, man. I think it's one of the reasons that like I push myself to do a lot, but also it's one of the things that like, man, that's for having this really long term dream in my head that I wanted to do something like this. And then for me, essentially to like, so I'll look at this in two ways. Like it ended. So my immediate thought was like, well, I failed. You know what I mean? I failed. It's hard for me to like show people how painful that is or like how much hurt that comes with that. So I'm like, two things. Am I masking this? Am I being honest about this? And then I look at it from a different perspective after I've had time to process it. I'm like, look, man, you were a coach in one of the most sought after cities in America and like successfully. And like you taught a lot of people. You've had so many people go and do things that were under your tutelage. Like you influenced this city's culture so much. Like you can't look at it like a failure. You have to look at it like you played your part and sometimes chapters close and then it's time for you to move on. It's a beautiful thing that even happened, but at the time I just couldn't see it like that, man. I was like, if something ends, you failed, no matter what, period, point blank. And that's just really not the way life is, man. Like everything ends. Everything ends. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
things that are like, we're forever. I'm like, you mean till like the person that founded it is gone? You know what I mean? Like relationship, marriage, forever. Somebody will die at some point. You know what I mean? Like we just have this fixed idea that like everything is permanent and really life is impermanent, you know what I mean? So really kind of learning how to roll with the punches and accept that things will change has been really big for me.
That's great, man. I totally feel you. I mean, I'm 33, so I'm a little over 10 years younger than you, but like I've had forever since when I started podcasting, I was in my early 20s, and it was for a reason that like these kind of conversations, like just you saying that resonates with things that I've already thought in process because I had a business and that, we closed that down and the whole thing. And it again, long form conversations, I feel like can have such an impact on people that listen to them beyond most things in life, unless you're actually taking a class, seeing a therapist, or having some sort of like inner circle group, or if you go to church, you have your groups or whatever you do there. But it is about this like very one-on-one or even small tribe type of bond that one can have with either with a host or a community group or whatever. Because, for instance, you say like everything you just said is so spot on and great. And if you think of Austin and the jiu-jitsu scene from 2010 to 2020, that decade, I mean, it's stamped in time as one of the coolest and craziest times for social media, Austin, Texas, the jiu-jitsu scene, and everybody that was in it. And you can't take that away. Like you did a whole bunch, you met a whole bunch of people, you had great experiences, and it'll probably somehow it's going to repay you again in the future. I don't know how. And all of us that were involved, because that decade was so pivotal to the things that are going on now.
Absolutely. It's so interesting, man. Like I will see some of these other schools that are like, just kind of leading the charge now. And there was a time in which I can look at a pictures or post and I'd be like, that person, I've trained with that person. Just like I didn't recognize so many faces. And now I'm like, I don't know who any of these people are.
Yeah.
My own backyard, you know what I mean? And I'm not even mad at that, but more than I'm just like, it's just changed so much. And it's, you know, it's a bit of hubris for me to be like, it should not have changed. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I was there and I want my roses. And I'm like, bro, like life is change. That's all it is, man. And like you can be upset about it while it continues to roll on, or you can roll with it. And like, you know, don't have a scarcity mindset, man. But it's hard, man. Like we're humans, you know what I mean? And we want to be recognized for the things we do. We want to be validated for, the things we've been through. And so there's a part of the ego that comes online that's like, why aren't I getting it? Why isn't that mine? When really, like, fuck, man, it's really something to take a look at it and go, I'm really grateful that I was able to like meet so many people. I'm on this podcast because of the things that I went through a few years ago and friends that I've made, like you.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just real cool, man, you know?
And you don't ever know who's going to listen to it and what impact it'll have. Like I just had on Jess Mao, who she was an Invicta card girl, and she worked with a very big fitness podcast. She works for Google now, and her episode only went up a couple of days ago, or when this drops, probably about a week ago. And the amount of just interactions that it's had, like from Laura Sanko, Jessica Penne, a bunch of the UFC, staff, and then just random people on YouTube Shorts and whatever, where it's like, I've never resonated with this clip more than anything. And she's talking about her ADHD and her personal life and all these different things and things that most people wouldn't hear about. And it's like, man, the impact a conversation can have, again, is fucking great, man. Like, and you being a barber, I imagine you have conversations with people that come into your shop all the time that are like, man, like, this is really cool. Like, no one else is having a chat like this with this person, right?
I think so, man. I think, well, I'm in a weird place right now because I'm still learning the craft. So my typical, like, I'm in the flow zone is not quite there yet.
To like be able to talk and work, you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Where, I also have ADHD, man. So like I tend to hyperfixate on things. So, this is great. Like when I was making all the Darkland designs, like I'm staying up till 3:30 a.m. doing the things, right? But like I get into doing the technical part of hair and I'll just be like, just like, and my coworkers would be like, dude, you're like fucking laser focused. I'm truly like, everything's got to be perfect, And so I'm really learning how to like back up a little bit, and let things happen. So I'm still learning it in real time. You know what I mean? Like, okay, every opportunity that I have to do something is an opportunity to go, okay, don't do it that way. Or like, yeah, keep doing it that way. So yes, there's definitely people in which I'm more comfortable with that we have these conversations. And then there's other people I'm like, fucking strange head shape. Tackle this. You know what I mean? Like, how am I going to do this without fucking you up? So here we go. You know what I mean? So
that's hilarious.
There because it's my personality, and also like I'm learning something new, man. It sucks to learn something new. To be like brand new at something.
Yeah.
Kind of sucks, dude.
Oh, dude, I know. I hate it. But also, like, you got to like it because that's the only way you, like, progress through this game. Like, I look at life as a game. I've been saying this since I was a kid. I used to piss my dad off when I'd say, like, this is all one big game, Dad. Like, he's like, this isn't real. It's real life. There's real consequences. And he'd get mad at that. And now that I'm in my 30s and he's in his late 60s, I remind him of the things I used to say. And he kind of gets what I was trying to say because it is, man, whether it's the money game, the career game, the personal, all these different aspects of your life are like a video game, right? Would you agree with that?
I see your point.
Yeah.
I think it's a slippery slope to think of anything as maybe inconsequential as a game. Like, get a reset because, I tend to put a little bit more stock into like the things that we do and say, which is also probably why I don't play the game very well. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like where I'm like, yeah, I see people doing like, we'll just use social media as an example, and they're like really good at it. And I'm like, I'm kind of stuck between like the presentation of like, do I, in this idea here, present as who I am and probably as authentic as I like to be and probably have a smaller audience? Or do I get a persona? Like, do I kind of lean in more to a persona and maybe have a broader audience, but it's not 100%. I don't want to say authentic. It's just not who I would be in my off time. And so that's kind of the way that I see things here, where I kind of have like, there's a duality of a lot of things. So I can see your point, definitely. But I can also see your dad's point and be like, and that's just me being fucking Libra, man, and being like,
hey, I'm a Libra too. I'm a Libra as well. When's your birthday?
October 16th.
October 18th.
Dude, you know who else's birthday is that?
John Mayer? No, who?
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Really? Dude, Bloodsport, one of my favorite movies. That's why I like kickboxing.
I'm just saying, man, I grew up, like, that was a dude that, like, got me into wanting to do martial arts as a kid.
So many people say that. I agree. I totally agree with you. Yes. It wasn't even Bruce Lee for me. It was definitely Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Well, I think it was, like, before my time. Like, I was born in 77, so I think he was, like, making movies in the 70s. mean, when did he die? In the 70s?
Did he? You might be right. Yeah.
So, who came after that? Like,
Steven Seagal.
years ago. Yeah, all those guys,
Yeah.
all those muscle-bound 80s dudes. So Schwarzenegger, which he wasn't like martial arts, he's more guns.
Yeah.
Anyhow, off the subject. So I see what you're saying, but I also see the other side. So I can't really say that I like in one or the other. Like,
Sure, sure. No,
or,
that's very dad of you to say, by the way. That's very dad-like of you, very mature dad-like. I'm still a child. I'm 33. I'm still a kid, so I will allow myself the room to say, I think it's all a game because it's not like there's defined rules to the game. There's definitely, there's an array of rules of how to play this game. But
yeah,
nonetheless, and funny enough, at the beginning of this, you said, when the pandemic came and you were a victim of the whole lockdowns in the 2020, and then you were like, you know what? No, I wasn't a victim of it. That's a great mentality to have. Like the victim mentality is what keeps you down here. It's what keeps you from not progressing and overcoming some of the obstacles that we've all had, right?
I think so. I think so. I mean, accountability is huge, man.
Number
And
one.
sometimes people want to be accountable for their actions and stuff. I don't know that everybody knows how.
Yeah.
And, and I think in all fairness, I don't know that our society prepares us for that. You know what I mean? Like a lot of us come from broken homes and like did not have parental figures to like show us that. And even the ones that we did, like my parents are like boomers, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like their take on how to express themselves is like it's not productive, you know what I mean? Like that's why, it seems like the older generation, like if they didn't adapt, they have like very dated ways to process. And so that got passed down. So I think this is why now you see a lot of like society kind of leaning toward like, okay, what are we actually doing? We're not just kind of coasting anymore. We're like looking at the actions of people that came before us, what's going to happen after us. And so I think now it's just time to like reassess. You know what I mean? Like it's fine to make mistakes, man. Like you're gonna make them, but also like realizing that it's okay to admit that you don't know what you're doing. It's okay to admit that it was a mistake and go back and go, okay, how do I write this? How do I write the ship?
You're absolutely right. And the communicate, and that's why again I'm so big on communications because our parents, you could probably attest to this, weren't the best communicators, especially when it came to like my dad. I was just like old school military, small town kind of like just hard ass. And I always longed for those good conversations that I never got from him. And that's what I tell him now. I try to over communicate with him now that he's older and I'm older, and he's still kind of reluctant because as you get older, you want to hear less shit from people. Like I don't want to hear this shit from my son. I don't want to hear it from anybody. Like this is what it is lo que es, and lo quiero oír, whatever. And I'm like, all right. And I don't even get frustrated anymore. I used to get more frustrated in my 20s, but now I kind of like take my foot off the gas when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah, I think, at some point, man, like if this is your whole life of processing a certain way, man, it's just kind of hard to do. Like, not even that they're not willing to do it, it's just like, I don't know how to do it. I
Yeah,
don't know how to do it.
right.
There's frustration there, you know what I mean? But I think, as far as like our parents go, I'm going to kind of juxtaposition here two different things. Like, our parents, I think a lot of what they felt, whether that's like guilt, shame, anger, all that guilt, shame, whatever, frustration, all came out as anger.
Hmm.
And so they pass that on to the kids, like a lot of, I'm like Gen X. And so like Gen X people kind of took that and were like, well, there's something wrong here. We don't know how to change it as much, but we're not going to stand for that. And then of course the millennials after that, and they did something, but Gen Z, they're fucking wild. I love them, man. They're I don't want to say woke. They're just like they question everything,
Yeah, yeah.
and they do it with a certain like lightness to it, and they talk in their own language. You know what I mean? And I'm like, before, I guess like if you asked me like a few years ago, I'd be like, word fucked me. I'm like, fucked. I'm scared to let my kid out into the world. What fuck? And now I'm like, man, I'm really proud of that generation. Like they're showing up to do voting and activism, and they show up even at a young age. Where I feel like my generation was a bit jaded. We're like, we're all fucked and we can't do anything about it. And they're like, no, we're gonna do something about it. No cap. You know what I'm saying?
I'm a millennial, so I'm kind of to blame for everything apparently that's going on in the world.
Are you though? No,
Barely,
no.
kind of, sort of, just by definition, but not really by actions, I would say. But nonetheless, I mean, uh, look at our parents compared to like the kids coming up now. It feels like it was 1,000 years of difference. It's only been 20, 30 years.
Yeah, yeah, man. I mean, like I said, my son is 23. My mom's still alive, and in talking to, I have probably better communication with my son. It's just way healthier, and actually productive and fruitful than almost any conversation I've ever had with my mom.
I can relate to that. I can relate to that to a high degree, man. It is pretty cool though when you put it like that.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes me super thankful. Bummed because like I grew up and like I said, I'm a product of a divorced home, so some of the people, my schoolmates that I see, that would be like, mom and dad. I didn't get to say those things, mom and dad, because it was never that as a
Yeah.
unit. And the supportive parents, like sometimes I was a bit envious of that growing up. And I'm like, okay, cool. I am not going to do that with my son. I'm going to be different. And we had a rough road, man, because like, teenagers suck and they're not fun to talk to, man. They're like, it's their kid. It's not going to be easy to talk to. But also, like, we have just kind of had a loving home, you know what I mean? Where before it's like, that's something that was not cultivated. Now, it's something that like I'm so appreciative of, that I have that in my life.
Absolutely. Hey, how much time do you have? I didn't ask you before we started.
Time. We got time.
You got time? All right, cool. So I kind of want to segue a little bit into what you're doing now, and then how you see yourself making it the career that you want it to be. Like you put the effort and the time into becoming a barber. I assume getting a spot somewhere where you feel like you can excel at, and then what you do beyond that, we can still talk about, and you might still be planning out and thinking about. But how do you go from what you were doing to what you're doing now, and then bridge the gap on how to monetize the gym world, the personal training, the classes, to being a barber, and like you said earlier, trying to develop a new audience, maybe just getting people's interest to at least talk about what you do so that they can be, your walking billboards for you.
So I think the thing that I got out of jujitsu the most, truly, was just the ability to try things in real time. And so I'm going to go back just a little bit, like, because I didn't have those supportive things coming from my home. Like, I found jujitsu and really leaned into it, like, as something to fill a void that I had within myself. And that was, as a young person, I had anxieties and fears, like a lot of them, about just uncertainty about the future. When I started doing jujitsu, man, I was pretty angry because that's the thing that I inherited. And so I'm just like, I want to be a fighter. I want to just, whatever it is that jujitsu has, I want to jump into that. And as I start to really follow that path down, I start to realize like I can shed things. I don't need to be angry. I'm really much happier helping people and seeing how it changes their lives. And I like teaching and impacting people. And so what it really taught me was that like the things that I came with didn't need to be the things that I leave with. And so I can try new things. And so the biggest thing from there is that like I just want to be able to try new things. And I was able to do that. So when I did barbering, I was like, okay, really barbering, I needed a career to pay bills, but really what I wanted to have, especially after the pandemic, was time with my family. I wanted to be able to create, whether that's like short films, paintings, um, you know, have social media, maybe do some acting. Like, I just wanted to do all the things that maybe I thought, man, this pipe dream. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
why not? And so I looked at barbering as something like still in the creative realm. It'll pay bills. Cool. That's kind of like set. I can take that wherever I go. I can take that. And then the other side was like, it leaves me room to be able to do, some of the stuff that I really wanted to do creatively. I don't know if I told you, but when I moved to Austin, it wasn't for jiu-jitsu. I figured there's a Paragon there and I could go to Paragon. But I moved because I wanted to do stand-up comedy, and I did. And I was doing that for a minute, but I kind of tend to go where I can flex my creative skills, you know what I mean? And so like I needed to do something that was going to allow me to have creativity in my life. Like it's understated in my life, and it's also like so important, you know what I mean? Like I don't like to always tell people like I want to do this, but it like really burns within me, man, that I'm just like just need to do creative shit, man. Like maybe I'll be like dormant for a minute, but it's gonna come up. I don't want to be like chained down and not allowed to do these things. And that's even, a self-imposed like chaining. Not that anybody's chaining me down, but just more that I'm like, I have to do this. And so as I've gotten older, I've really tried to lean into more like the artist in me and really not feel pretentious about considering myself an artist. And just like, it is what it is. And it's been like that for a long time, man. And I just have always been a little bit reluctant to be like, I'm an artist. Like, I'm like, so many people say they're artists, and like, are you doing anything,
Yeah.
And so I never wanted to put myself out there like that. Now I'm like, no, I'm going to try to do that.
So how do you think you could monetize because the podcast, this is a very heavily self-development and entrepreneurial podcast. Those are my two favorite things to talk about. How do you think you could monetize your artistic abilities? Like if you had to go monetize them tomorrow, what skill set could you monetize on right now?
I mean, at this point, if we're talking about like the job wise, I mean, that's kind of why I leaned into the barbering as a profession, because I think when you start to monetize creative endeavors, they start to lose some of their luster. You know what I mean? And so I struggle with that a little bit because like when it becomes a job, it loses its freedom in a way. And so I'm like, well, I have to find something that allows me to pay bills, and then something that allows me to completely disconnect from that and go, how do I just do this thing? No, it's probably not the answer you're looking for, but I'm like, I think at this point, I haven't figured that out. I'm like, do a job that pays you, do creative things to set your soul free. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay, and I like that answer. There's nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of us did do that for a long time until you're able to, bridge over to whatever the full-time thing you want to be. But when I think about it, if I had your artistic ability of just being able to draw, I would think, okay, for me, this is what it's always been. Number one is as much or pure autonomy as possible. So if I had that artistic skill and I said, you know what, I have even a little bit, it's not lost on me that I have a probably above average gift of gab, as my father would tell me, like, boy, you could talk like a motherfucker, right? So I could probably sell a business or a company or whatever on my ability to draw a logo for them, rebrand their business, do whatever, so that in itself if you're that good, which you are, and a lot of people that I've talked to and know are, you could name your price to where you could fund a week or a month on one project or two projects, and it would allow you the autonomy, which is my number one thing, just time back. There was a book that I've been referencing later, How to Buy Your Time Back, by I think Dan Martell or Dave Martell, and it's all about how to systematize your day so that you can do the things you want to do the most. And if it meant that you could start the canvas of a design, for instance, let's say that you were going to design the next Nike logo or the next big jiu-jitsu logo, right? And you're like, okay, I've got the canvas of what it's going to be outlined. I got the silhouette of it, and I need to go find somebody that can color it or they can finish off the details. I'm going to find that person, and then I'm going to work on acquiring the next one. And those two projects might pay you 20 grand. You're like, you know what? I could be set for a couple of months if I just knock these two out. And you would just spend your time doing that, a couple hours a day or whatever, and then you go do jiu-jitsu, and then you go do whatever, or you still cut hair because you love doing that as well. But it's about being able to bridge the gap of your creativity and then how it can give me monetization to allow for as much autonomy as possible.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that would be fucking awesome.
yeah, and I think you can do it. And if you have any questions or need help or guidance, I would love to be able to. And that's why I like the podcast too, is like helping people. Here's another thing too. Let me add to it. I have found that a lot of things that all of us think are common sense, like you might have things you think are common sense, and I do, and then you talk to a friend, an acquaintance, or maybe somebody you just met, and you're like, man, they're so oblivious to what we're talking about. How could they possibly? It's so common sense. So that's probably why I have even more patience, because some people they don't see it. The only reason that somebody's doing better than you at anything is because they see something that you don't see. And if you allow yourself to learn from them or to learn what they're doing, even if it's not from them, but just indirectly, you can level up, even if it's a little bit. And that is so apparent to me now in my early 30s that a lot of people don't have the same common sense that I have. It doesn't mean they don't have common sense. They just don't see the world the way I see it.
Yeah, I think, that really just goes to say, like, all of us are our own universes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and our experiences, not just yours and mine, but just in general, are like similar because, we need to eat, sleep, all those human functions.
Yeah.
And in any point, we've respawned in like different areas of the map. You know what I mean? Like our outlook is just a bit different, whether I'm upstairs and you're downstairs or underground. It's like, you're going to do the thing that you think or the situation has presented you and what you think is best. And so, yeah, man, it is easy to think like, so everybody knows this shit. But like, man, if you talk to somebody like in a rural town about the same things we're talking to now, they'd probably be like,
a plane couldn't have gone higher over their heads.
Right. Or be like, well, they're going to talk to you about maybe farming. And
right.
then it goes vice versa. Like, fuck, I didn't even consider that. You know what I mean? So
right.
like, I do find that really interesting. Of all the things you just said, it really just is apparent that I need a manager. I mean, for my own shit. Because I'm like, listen, man, sales have never been my thing. I was a salesperson. I worked for T-Mobile for a minute, and my managers would pull their hair out, man, because they'd be like, "You need to close the sale," and I'd just be like, People would be like, I'm not do that, man.
Yeah.
So at the very end of my like career there was definitely times in which I was just like coasting. I'm gonna go get a cherry limeade and maybe put a little vodka in there and just like hang out for the day and be like, maybe I'll get fired today. Like, I fucking hate this job.
That's a very T-Mobile employee thing to do, by the way.
It is. Oh, I know. It used to be way worse, man. T-Mobile used to be like a cricket of like with cricket. You know what I mean? Now they're all like all over the place, 5G and whatever this shit is. But like, yeah, man, I just have never been the type of person that like I know how to sell. You know what I mean? Like, can I do? Yes, absolutely. Can I sell it?
I hear what you're saying, man, and I disagree. And here's why. Because I also don't like direct sales. I don't like cold calling. I had a couple of cold calling jobs. It felt like the worst. Obviously, I don't have probably the skill set that I did. That was like late teens, early 20s. If I had the skills then, now I probably would have killed it. But like I said earlier, have people sell for you. Like, have a thing so good or offer a thing so good that other people will sell it for you and that it sells itself essentially. All they have to do is hear about what Derrick's doing, what he offers, his ability, and it kind of sells itself. So it takes away from that need to actually be like a salesy kind of a cold caller, door-to-door knocker, that kind of thing, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I need a manager, man.
Well, we need to find out what we're managing first, and maybe we can fill that cup.
Give me some time, man. I'll think about this.
Yeah. And again, just don't hesitate to ask. So aside from the art, aside from your artistic abilities, when it comes to your art of being a barber, where is that placed at right now? Like, where are you working out of? Like, where can people, go visit you?
Hit me up on my IG. It's at x.dgthebarber.x. And I'll let you guys know all the details. I don't want you guys doxing me right now, putting me on the internet like that. But hit me up. I will let you know all the details. And we'll hook it up.
You know what you should do, and that should do. Nobody should do anything. That's another thing we should stop doing, is saying shoulds. People should do anything. My suggestion, when I think about it, is a good way to probably get traffic to wherever you are doing hair, or anybody listening, whether you're doing a massage or you're cutting hair or doing whatever, doing nails even, is go to your nearest small businesses, maybe your friends, maybe, for instance, all the jiu-jitsu people I'll go to all the gyms, and I don't know if there are a ton around you, but for instance, if there are, just be like, hey, maybe one of the managers or an owner or whatever, be like, hey, here's my card. Give every new client a free haircut on me, or a free set of nails on me. And that way you're getting you're getting the ability. Let's just say that a gym gets 25 new clients a week, and they give them a voucher, and you get 25 first-time clients. The price tag on the lifetime value of a new customer could be hundreds or thousands of dollars. If you kill it, if you knock it out of the park, they're a customer for life.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm thinking logistics. I'm like, what if they all came the same week? Like,
right. Well, you got to book it. All right. We're going to plan it out. You can't all come on Monday at 10 o'clock.
Bro, spread the shit out. Spread the shit out.
Yeah.
Pick one person this week.
Yeah. Just one a week? No. We got to level up. We can't do one a week.
Do different gyms.
How many people do you see a week? Or do you think you could see a week?
If you're doing like 45 minutes a cut, it can be like 8 a day, 40 a week.
40 a week? That's not bad.
Be like the max.
So imagine that would you say that you're pretty booked to a half a degree, a full degree, or like a quarter of a degree? How packed are you a week?
At this point, I'm still building clientele. I'm still pretty new to the industry.
So see
like,
how important would having 10 or 20 new people every week?
No, 100%. I agree with you.
Let's make it happen. I'm somewhat of a Google expert as well. So if we need to do some Google advertising or promote the offer, just let me know. I'm just trying to put it out there. I'm just trying to be of service. I'm not asking for a cut of it yet, but if it blows up, I might later.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for the.
Of course, a good salesman always has to have. You always got to ask. The ask has to be there. ABC, always be selling, or ABS, always be selling.
Yeah. Selling with a C.
Yeah, whatever, bro. ABC is always be choking. By the way, that's a jiu-jitsu brand.
Is it?
Yeah.
I hope not.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
No, it isn't.
Yeah. I have a buddy from an old gym that I used to train at that started that a long time ago.
Oh, that's your friend?
Well, not he was a training partner, kind of. I don't know him that well.
My gripe with jiu-jitsu merchandise is that it never evolved past the 90s.
I think if I do hold that thought.
There's a couple now. I like Half Sumo Collective. Like that's real cool. I think Future has some pretty cool stuff. But like, have you? I'm gonna just throw it out there.
Go ahead.
It's like a Naga tournament recently. It's
not in a long. They still have the same Naga belts and everything.
It's still the same shit. It's like literally. I'm like, who produces this much merchandise that has not evolved? It's the same stuff. Like you would see Matt Serra wearing that like in his heyday. Like,
dude, what a good time that was, though.
Yeah, but we're 2023 now, man. Like you got to update those fucking designs, man.
That's a very good point, and you should do this today. Is you should email what's her name, Shannon from Invicta, or you should Seth Daniels from Fight to Win, or Eric Garcia from Garcia Promotions. Be like, hey man, I want to revamp your brand. I want to make some designs and see if you like them. I want to see if we can work together because I really feel like we need to bring this world of martial arts, jiu-jitsu, women's MMA, whatever it is, whoever you reach out to, into the new 2023 age.
Pretty good idea. It's a pretty good idea.
I'm telling you.
It's pretty good. Is Fight to Win still doing shit?
Oh yeah. They're doing big shit still.
Are they?
Yep. I was just talking. So I'm not sure when they drop, either before you or after you. But Mitch Clark, he was a former UFC middleweight. He's doing some. We were talking about Fight to Win just the other day. I don't remember why we brought up Seth and the whole thing, but he's doing commentary for one of the Fight Pass promotions. I can't remember what. But anyway, yeah, like he's still doing stuff like. All those things are still running. And it's funny because I've been so out of the scene for probably 4 or 5 years, but as I've gotten back into it, I've always kept up with it. And you're so right, man. Like I'm thinking of all these new breed, no knock on them. What are the other ones? Grappling games. Like there's tons of these things where you'll see the same shit from 10, 15 years ago.
I mean, yeah. And I think it's because, like Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator are like, readily available to everyone, and anybody can just be like, yeah, I just did this thing, and now I'm gonna stick it on, and that's my brand now. And it's like, okay, that's cool. You definitely save money in that way by doing it yourself, and sometimes it doesn't have an artistic vision. Sometimes those people are really good at running an organization, but just didn't have the vision to be like, that just wasn't their forte, you know what I mean? So like sometimes you get things that are like weird looking that just make it really big, and you're like, so weird, man.
Dude, that's a really good, I'm telling you, that's a great idea, because a lot of the times when it comes to small business or business in general, you don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel, right? You don't need to start over. Just find something that's already performing and then figure out how to make it perform better. Yeah. Figure out how to make it perform faster. Better and faster is all you need in order to just get, have that thing invigorated and then have people get super excited about it. You should totally do that. Like we talked about earlier, you find yourself to be more of a no-gi guy, right? Maybe find your favorite no-gi segment of the industry or company or organization and then start there, or, whatever. Like get creative. Again, just sit down and kind of have a brain dump about it.
Yeah, I had a guy he's a black belt, but he owns a video game studio, and he wanted to buy the name Dark Clan from me. And I was like, yeah, it seems cool, man, but I think at some point I might, revamp the brand and put it out there and just, do my designs and stuff, man. More from like, I'm just doing not the academy stuff. I'm not going to be teaching, just apparel.
That's a great idea. Or just design. That's not a bad idea. If you start the Dark Clan, maybe it's, Dark Clan Media, and your niche is redesigning logos or designing new logos for people in the industry. Because a lot of times people take over these things that are younger and they have a fresh vision from the person that was older and they took it over from, and they have no way of going about it. You could be the plug where if somebody was revamping, for instance, just because I talked to somebody from there, but Invicta or whatever, they've had the same logo forever, right? Not to say it's a bad logo. It's very, it's iconic. You know what it is, what it looks like, but you could make it look like when the UFC revamped their belts. Remember that? People were so upset about it. And I thought it was like, yeah, it doesn't look as cool, but now it looks fucking cool.
Yeah. I mean, it looks way more modern than before.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the beginning, you're like, what? And that's almost with anything, man. Anything you change, people will kind of be up in arms for a moment and then they'll get over it. And then they'll move on. You know what I mean?
Hey,
so it's almost like you have to ruffle some feathers in some way.
Oh, and you will. And you will, right? But speaking of names, domains, were you ever a person that bought domains kind of like real estate to maybe think you're going to resell it later? Yeah, dude.
I have some that were like, we never did anything with. Like I said, when I moved here, 2012, I was like, I'm going to do stand-up comedy. I bought like my own name.com.
Nice.
I'm doing open mics and I'm like already thinking like,
of course.
Put myself out there, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, I still pay for it. I'm just like, nothing's ever been done to it.
Well, funny enough, I had somebody like one of the GoDaddy representatives, that's where I buy all my domains, right? Reach out to me and he was like, hey, Mr. Garza, we have this customer who wants to, because they have like an auction site where you can sell your domains on GoDaddy, right? Sometimes people will reach out to you and on behalf of a customer or whatever. So somebody wanted to buy one of these domains that I had, and they wanted I wasn't even thinking about selling it, but as a seller's mind goes, I was like, oh, I don't usually try to offload any of my my online real estate, but what do they have in mind? They're like, oh, they had a budget of like X, like $500. And I was like, yeah, I can't let that go for any less than $5,000. So let me know what they say. And then they come back and they're like, well, they'll pay you $1,000. I'm like, if they're really serious about it, because they said, well, they can't afford it yet, but they're going to go with something else. And when they can afford it, they'll come back and rebrand later. I was like, tell them that that's a terrible idea. If you're going to brand something, why would you go with a different name even though you want this name, and then just to come back in a year or two and buy the name and rebrand everything? So I was like, if they want, I'll take $4,000. So that was yesterday. So I'm interested to see if these people are just trying to get a better deal on it. But you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's a great, if you have not done that and you have good ideas, go lock up some domains, man. They're valuable.
Yeah, man. It was, people were doing that, like just grabbing the domain name. I mean, shit, man. After Eastside closed, there was a school here that will remain unnamed, but they went and bought East Austin Jiu-Jitsu and were like trying to funnel all the Eastside people there.
Damn.
Like literally the week that we announced that we closed, and I was like, damn, that's pretty shady. But
well, that doesn't give it away, Derrick.
Well, yeah, maybe. I don't even know if that shit exists anymore. That was like,
a year ago.
No. We closed in 2018. So.
Oh yeah, that one. My bad. Yeah. Hilarious.
So, I don't know. Go find out if you want. I'm not saying anything about it.
That's so funny. Well, dude, we're coming up on an hour and a half. I appreciate the time, man. Like, what do you got going on other than that? Do you have anything? Because I know you like to film stuff. You do like to do other creative endeavors. Like, do you have anything you're working on or that you want to start working on?
Like I said, man, probably just some short film stuff. Like, probably I got myself a nice little rig, so I'm like trying to figure out the best way to put myself in front of the camera, put myself behind the camera, man. Like, I don't know, it's just something I want to do. I think there's some fun to be had there, and so if any of my friends want to jump in on some stuff, man, let's create some content, man. And if you don't know, then let's do it.
Well, dude, if there's anything I can do for you, just shoot me a text. Don't hesitate to ask. I love trying to get people to figure out how to monetize the thing that they're doing or monetize the thing that they want to be doing and try to just overcome those hurdles. Like, why would you want to go through all of somebody's obstacles when you can just hurdle through all of them by asking a question or having somebody answer them for you if they can?
Yeah, man, I think it's a great point, We don't know what we don't know.
Exactly.
Sometimes.
Dude, I say that all the time, especially to my wife. You know, when she gets frustrated, I'm like, look, you don't know what you don't know. Like, relax, be cool. All right.
If
Jeez.
they go to catchphrase, dude, I'm sure she'll love that.
Yeah, right. Because she already loves when I tell her, don't be unreasonable. Anybody married there, have a girlfriend, like, tell next time they're being a little too much, just be like, look, stop being so unreasonable. It made her
I think
freak out.
like the catchphrase that you tell like your spouse where like years and years just say the same shit.
Yeah, totally, dude. Totally. Like, hey, you're being unreasonable. And then it clicks and it becomes a joke because they realize they're being a little unreasonable sometimes.
Nice. It's very meta.
Very. There you go. Very meta. Brother, I appreciate it. I'll have your bio and your handle in the description. People want to follow you. And if
Oh, I had to one up McCaffrey because I saw that he was doing some classes. So I was like, just so you know,
you look like Elton John.
I love Elton John.
Do you? Okay. All right. Cool. So it's a compliment. I don't know much of Elton John, but it's fun.
He's aficionado, musical
Of course.
virtuoso.
Yes. So I've heard. I'm guilty of not knowing a lot of things from your era. Like I'm just a little. I guess I'm a little too young for some of that stuff.
Well, there's still time, my friend. You have the internet, Spotify, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I play with AI to try to like figure other stuff out, not figure out how good Elton John is.
He's dope.
I'm just kidding. All right, brother. I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your week, man. I'll talk to you soon. Stay in touch.
Appreciate you, my bro.
All right, man.
Thank you for having me on, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care, brother.